sweethearts, they had a quarrel one day. Johnny vowed he'd leave her, said he was going away, never coming home, going away to Rome. Bragging, she begged and she pleaded, fine old Johnny, please stay. Now, honey, I've done you wrong, but please don't go away. Then Johnny sighed, and Frankie cried, oh, I'm going away, I'm going to stay, and I'm coming home. Gonna miss me, honey, in the day that come, when the wind begins to blow the ground, coming up, so you think of me. Gonna wish you big like you love him, man. Gonna miss me, honey, in the day to come. Frankie done said to her, Johnny, say man, you always come. Underneath the silk kimono, she drew a 44 gun, it was a fair, but a large affair. Johnny fled down the stairway, fine old Frankie don't shoot. Frankie took a 8-44, 5 times with the roof too, as Johnny fell. And Frankie yelled, oh, I'm going away, I'm going to stay, you're never coming home. Gonna miss me, honey, in the day to come, when the wind begins to blow around and covers up, so you think of me. Gonna wish you back, you loving man. Gonna miss me, honey, in the day to come. Tar hushes, send for your rubber-tarred hack. Yeah, little Johnny to the graveyard, I've shot him in the back with a great big gun. As he went to run, send for some policeman, take me right away. Lock me down in the dungeon cell and throw the key away, but Johnny's dead. Just cause he said, oh, I'm going away, I'm going to stay, you're never coming home. Gonna miss me, honey, even day to come. The wind begins to blow around and coming up, so you think of me. Gonna wish me back, you loving man. Gonna miss me, honey, in the day to come.
Mama can more than oh, Mama can more than Mama le shabring guy na somebody manda toro pelo telengai mulo Mama karinde my love lamo Mama su kilo moro ilo Mama su kilo moro ilo Mama karinde my love lamo Daraka ula marala Mama na suda tu armaya ruki makal kankara Mama state vla kares kada tabutares marata Mama marata des mai tar mai des mai kesi Mama de la rau pe control ma de la caula marata State vla kada tar mai kada Mama dan asul que nu is maga Haideți mama-i care maya Carinte la ula de ula gago. Vamos to kilo moro ino. Ama carinte mala ula unda ka ula marala. Mama na suda tu armaya ruki ma kankara. Mama sta de bla kares kata ta mutares marata. Vamos to kilo moro ino. Ama carinte mala ula unda ka ula marala. Mama na suda tu armaya ruki ma kankara. Mama sta de bla kares kata ta mutares marata. Carinte la ula de ula gago. Da 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 Tabii bak tane.
Lonesome side of you, right next to the Lonely Girl Hotel. So Mama tell me, Papa tell me too, what I'm to do. I said what I'm to do. On the lonesome side of you, right next to the Lonely Girl Hotel. So Mama tell me, Papa tell me too, what I'm to do. I said what I'm to do. Not for muscle men, they won't do. Not for skinny boy, they're my past too. Still I'm not happy, still feeling blue. I don't want no one but you. I'm on the lonesome side of you. So Mama tell me, Papa tell me too, what I'm to do. I said what I'm to do. 'Cause boys on my breast, you make me think twice, even though you are so nice. Boys on my breast, you make me think twice, even though you are so nice. On the lonesome side of you, right next to the Lonely Girl Hotel. Mama tell me, Papa tell me too, what I'm to do. I said what I'm to do. To walk in the park, kissing in the dark. God knows you make me blue. We used to Mama tell me, Papa tell me too, what I'm to do. I said what Mama tell me, Papa tell me too, what I'm in the park with the kissing in the dark. I said what God knows you make me blue. We used to walk in the park with the kissing in the dark. God knows you make me blue. On the lonesome side of you. So Mama tell me, Papa tell me too, what I'm to do. I said what I'm to do. Dabba-dabba-dum, dabba-dabba-doo. Not a skinny boy, that my past too. Still I'm not happy, still feeling blue. I don't want no one but you. On the lonesome side of you, right next to the Lonely Girl Hotel. Mama tell me, Papa tell me too, what I'm to do. I said what I'm to do. Shoo-ba-da-ba-da, shoo-ba-da-ba-da, la-da-da-ba-dee-ba-da-ba-dee-ba-da-ba-da. I'm the lonesome shoo-ba-da-ba-dee, sha-ba-dee-ba-da-ba-dee-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. I'm the lonesome side of you. I'm the lonesome side of you. I'm the lonesome side of you.
ากร่วมกันจนเงินไม่ใช่ของสำคัญซื้อกันแค่นั้นเป็นพอหากพี่ชอบและน้องติดต่อหูทองนี้ไปกอดน้อง
Yeah, I hope you think that as cool as I do. Music from Thailand. This is from a CD called Molam, Thai Country Groove from Isan. And that piece there translated as I'm Still Available from Hung Thong Kanunglam. And on Frequency Collide, one of the great records I've heard in the last many years. Yes, we heard from a DJ Rupture and featuring Lily. That was Lily's voice there on Lonesome Side. Let's see. The CD is called Special Gunpowder. We heard from the Shukar Collective out of Romania, Urban Gypsy. Man, this is a very, very cool record. Oh Mother was that track we heard from Shukar Collective, and that is on Riverboat. We heard Charlie Poole, and this is like just a fantastic box set that Columbia has put out, Columbia Legacy. You Ain't Talking to Me, Charlie Poole and the North Carolina Ramblers. 3 CDs in a cigar box with R. Crumb artwork. It's really fantastic. We heard Leaving Home, which also sounded like Frankie and Johnny to me. That was recorded in 1926 in New York City. Charlie Poole on banjo and vocal. And we started with She Doesn't Want Your Money from the Cambodian cassette archives with an unknown singer. All right, that catches us up, and you are tuned to WHOS Stores, in case you didn't know that. And One World Radio is the program. I'm Richard on Thursday mornings, usually from 10 until 12. This morning from 8 until 12. Still having problems getting Amy Goodman on, and I don't know what's going to happen about this, but we'll have to see what we can find out. We have an interview scheduled in just a few moments, so I am going to be giving Michael Anderson a call, and we are in the meantime going to listen to some Sun Ra from the Languidity Sessions. This one is called There Are Other Worlds They Have Not Told You Of. They Wish to Speak to You, right here on Sun Ra's Cosmic Corner, Part 2. right, folks, I have Michael Anderson on the phone. Are you there, Mike?
Yes, I am. Good
Hey,
day.
that's great. Well, welcome to One World Radio and Sun Ra's Cosmic Corner, Michael.
Hey.
Yeah. And Michael and I got to meet when we did a pretty expansive Sun Ra Arrival Day special in New York City at KCR last month, or actually it was May 22nd, Sunny's Arrival Day. So that was great meeting you, Michael, that day.
Yeah.
And so let's see. Well, let's first talk a little bit about your history of music. Where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in California, Sacramento, California, and then my family in '64 moved to Philly. And I was always around music, and I, listened to all, jazz, a lot of jazz, blues, and, rock and roll, stuff like that. And I kind of got into doing, like, radio shows for myself as a kid. I used to make tapes and things like that. So that was part of my early Philly experience. And a little bit later, I ended up in radio. And I was 13 years old when I had my first show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where was that?
In Philly, at
Okay.
Temple University.
Oh, yeah, cool. And then when did you get involved with Sun Ra?
Oh, okay. It's a unique experience. Matter of fact, it was a few years after I was on RTI at Temple, and folks were introducing me to Sun Ra's music, and, it was unique. And then, I was kind of, coming out of the old school, where you hear the harmonic structures, Jimmy Smith, organ players, Art Blakey type, music. And I really didn't get a good gist of what he was doing, and I thought it was kind of almost sacrilegious to as far as the essence of what real jazz was. And 2 weeks later, I was in the band. I was like, okay, he's going to show me.
You went from sacrilegious to religious.
Yeah, well, and then it became an experience because he was, Sonny was in the phone book, and they kept saying, you got to call him, you got to call him. So I decided to call him. And we started talking, and we hit it off right away because it was like my mind was open to, the, what we'll say, cosmic type of equational knowledge. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of advanced for my years, so that kind of contradicts when they say girls mature, much faster than boys.
Yeah.
So I kind of contradicted that. But Sun Ra invited me to come by. And when I got there, I was scared. I was scared because, hearing the space talk, and they're from different planets, I thought, okay, I'm hooked up with some alien beings, and I'm not going to move. I sat still, and I did not move. And the band was rehearsing, and he said, sit down and play. And I was like, okay. And I sat down and played, and they looked at me, and they're like, wow, because I was a bebop drummer out of the Sid Catlett School.
Yeah.
And we started, and then I started to go to rehearsals regularly. And that was my introduction to Sun Ra. He called me.
Wow. So were you playing trap drums with him?
Yes, I was.
And percussion? And hand percussion?
No, just basically trap drums.
Okay. Now, did he have other drummers at that time? Was Luke
Oh,
Mann
yeah, Luke Mann, Lex Humphreys. I think Clifford Jarvis was still around for a brief moment. Eddie Thompson, who was one of the percussionists, but he also played drums. And there's a few other people, too.
Well, I saw numerous Sun Ra shows where he had 4 trap drummers, fully set up, sometimes in small clubs. Mm-hmm. He didn't care how many he had. He loved the percussion, and, I do too. So the drums was your main instrument?
Yes, it was.
All right. And so how old were you at that time?
I was 16, and June called me the baby. My first gig we did, we went to Montreal. We went to Canada for 2 weeks. We did Montreal, then we did Quebec at the University of Quebec. And after the first show, I wasn't in the union as well, and that's another story. And we played at the Rising Sun Club. And, I was like, wow. And I would get off the bandstand and go sit in the audience, and Sonny says, why do you do that? I said, Sonny, you forget. I used to watch you, and I miss doing that. So I get off the bandstand and sit in the audience, let alone the union man would come in and look for everybody's cards, and I didn't have one, so I had to get off the bandstand.
Yeah.
And one night after we played there, I didn't come back until early in the morning. And June sat up all night waiting for me, and she says, "Look, you can't not do this. You can't. You don't know where you are." I said, "Well, it was okay. I was with some people that I met. They were friends." So she gave me the name, the baby. I was the baby of the band. And little Danny Davis. And it was just an experience, man. I mean, some of the most beautiful people that you could ever imagine. They were so beautifully spirited.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you completely on that one. So, tell me a little bit about how you got named the archivist for Sun Ra.
Well, since I was already on radio, and I also did kind of marketing for the band, making sure the records that we would press up and put labels on in the basement, they got played. So that was part of my job, to make sure the tapes were, okay, and putting things in perspective and keeping it kind of organized, because a lot of that stuff was a mess.
Oh, absolutely.
Out of the boxes, and there's a situation that Sonny had done where certain people were coming in and visiting and then walking out with tapes. So we had this scenario called sabotage, whereas we would take tapes and cut it and put it on different reels, so it would be heads in to each other, and then it would be tails, all kinds of things. And so I'm one of the only people that can kind of put it back together.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And do you have some of those tapes now?
No, not at the moment. I sent a lot of that stuff to Alton when Sonny was getting sick.
Yep.
And, a lot of that stuff ended up in his hands. And now, at the moment, we don't know where anything is.
Yeah, because he's gone now, too.
Yes, Sonny, Alton split.
Yeah.
And there was a copy of a video of the Live at Montreux release, and I saw it. It was in the PAL format, and I've been trying to locate that. No one seems to know where it is.
Wow.
So, but it's extra footage. Is about two or more, about 2.5 hours.
Yeah, and that's still a short show for them,
Oh, it was outrageous, man. I mean, you heard the Montreux LP.
Yep.
But when you saw the film, it made so much more sense. You're like, wow.
Well, that's the way it was with Sun Ra anyhow. Like, if you never saw him perform, it was really hard to get the gist of it without, the visual.
Yeah, well, that's what I was telling people. I mean, basically, during the time I was there, I was in the band from 76, April 76 to about 82, and I was still associated with the band up, up to the time he passed, and as well as now. But you had to see the band. I think the 70s was the peak point, because some of those shows are just outrageous. A lot of that stuff was recorded, especially the Halloween shows we did in Philly, where the song Halloween in Harlem came into view. We were at a place called Grendel's Lair in South Philly. And man, oh man, when I heard that, I was like, yeah. And John was, of course, John played his butt off, respectfully speaking.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, you had to see it to believe it. The later point when people come in, they hear the music, or where there's a big lull where it just seems like they're just vamping. They have to visualize they were dancers.
Oh yeah.
That were dancing, so you'll hear just like a vamp, but there are some outrageous dancers: Wisteria, Cheryl, Barbara, Ted. There were so many people.
Yep. Yeah, and that was the thing with Sonny. The visuals were very, very striking with the band, and of course the costumes and everything. It just made for an experience that wasn't just a concert.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, shows are supposed to be 1-2 sets, and you're supposed to play about 45 minutes, but we end up 2 hours.
Oh, yeah. I saw several 4.5, 5-hour shows with no breaks.
Yeah.
There was a normal at one point. And like I said, the 70s, the late 70s when I started seeing the band, 77, when Michael Ray showed up, and of course Michael added a great dimension to the group.
Oh, yes, he did.
So.
Yeah, Mike Ray. There were points with the band where we had a funk night where we would just play like Parliament Funkadelic type funk and just turn the tunes into, we play. There's this one called UFO.
We know that.
The first time we did that was at a place around the corner from the house called Elaine's, which I think originally was called the Red Carpet Lounge. And when I heard that, I was like, we're getting some funk into the thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people who don't know Sun Ra really misunderstand. He was an extremely a brilliant composer, arranger. Going back into, as we were doing at KCR, his days playing blues and the bebop period. A lot of people sleep on the bebop period.
Yeah.
I remember days we would just play straight up and down bebop, and John Gilmore would just be playing. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, because that's where he came out of.
Yeah.
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 So let's talk a little bit about Languidity. That is a session that's like, I said yesterday, infamous in some circles. I love it myself, but not everybody does. But I think it's a fantastic foray for Sun Ra into other worlds. And you were intimately involved with that session.
Yes. Well, that was one where we had 3 drummers. As a matter of fact, that's right after the Canada shows that we did. And Tom Buechler, who used to work for a station at the University of Penn, decided to become a record producer, and he produced Sonny Murray unit. Well, it was a Sonny Murray record anyway, and then there was a Bayard Lancaster.
Oh yeah, they
album,
played together. Yeah,
and Bill Lewis had a record, so it was basically those 4 records. But the thing about Languidity, the one that's released on CD, is the second version. The first version was much better.
Yeah.
And if you can find it, it's worth a lot of money. But it was unique because the songs were much longer, and to me, it just seems like they were the better takes of the ones that were issued than the one that was on what now is on the
Philly Jazz.
Yeah.
But now you're saying it's different takes. Now I was under the impression that it was the same take, but that Sonny went into the studio and tweaked around with stuff that.
No,
that's not what happened. Oh,
no. Because when we put out our version on vinyl on El Saturn.
Yeah.
And there's still a few of them floating around, but there were background vocals on Their Worlds They Have Not Told You Of. There was a whole different thing, and it was about maybe 13 minutes long.
Yeah.
So that is another version or other takes that were done that day, because I think we did a few takes of each one.
Well, I've got that with me here. We just call it the test pressing. So I don't think this came from the Saturn release, what I've got, but they said it was from the test pressing of it. And I think it's great myself. I think I tend to agree with you that it was better. It would be nice that it would be released, remastered and everything.
Yes.
All right, now let's see. You are involved now with ESP Music, and ESP has reissued some Sun Ra stuff.
Yes.
And there actually is one disc that wasn't even reissued. It was a first time ever.
Yes.
Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, Helio 3 is a continuation of Volume 2 because, as you know, or may not know, Sun Ra would go in the studio and just record. And at that time, for vinyl, you only had 30 minutes max, I guess. Well, no, about 35 minutes max. So Sonny had recorded all this other music, and the tapes became lost because they were taken from the ESP offices, and they became, as we say, lost.
Yeah.
And then one day I happened to, we were trying to get the estate and everything together, and I happened to come across some of the tapes, and I listened and I said, wait a minute, this is Helio 3, because of the way that Richard Alderson records the bass. He had a tube amp on the bass, so the bass, when that nice resonant sound.
Yeah.
Richard Alderson is one of the most magnificent recorders of a bass instrument, acoustic bass. So that's what gave away the knowledge of this is additional footage that hasn't been released.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably more from Helio 1 as well.
So that was all Boykins he was working with, right?
Hmm?
He was working with Ronnie Boykins.
Ronnie Boykins, yes.
Yeah. So that was from the same session as number 1?
No, this is Helio 3?
Yeah.
No, that's from Helio 2.
Okay, oh yeah, same session as Helio 2, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how about other Sun Ra material? Do we have anything that we can look forward to coming out? Or?
Well, as I said, a lot of that stuff has been lost.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to hook up with Marshall to get some kind of understanding if there's anything there, because what I do is I do mastering, and what I want to do is set up some things because they're in real dire straits at the moment.
Yeah.
And I believe if anything that happens with the tapes, all that residuals or revenue should go to Marshall and the band, the people who played the music, because there's so many people that are no longer alive.
Right.
And as I was mentioning to you, all these people are putting out this music, and it's like, well, has anybody put a headstone, a new headstone on Sonny's grave?
Yeah.
Or on John's, or Danny Davis, or even on June's? I mean, there's so many people, man.
Yeah. Absolutely, and this band never got the respect that it deserved. I've been saying for years this is the greatest musical aggregation, not aggravation, but aggregation, right? And ever. And and as you mentioned before about Sun Ra, I've said many times that I believe he's the greatest musical mind that we ever had on our planet. Mm-hmm. And he could play Mozart, any kind of classical composer. He could play anything, but the stuff he wrote, not very many people could play it at all. So, I think that he was, beyond what people consider about him, because he really wasn't a charlatan at all. He was the most knowledgeable person in music that I've ever encountered.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the what they call free jazz came about during the 60s due to, it was actually a black movement, which a lot of people don't know. But, I mean, there were other people who were participants of the genre, we'll say, because, music was going this way, that way, and, there's a lot of the revolutionary artists will say, we're looking to do something different with the music. Mm-hmm. So we came up with people like Cecil Taylor, who was very classically trained, but, Cecil does his thing.
Right.
Sonny did his thing, Marzette Watts, Ornette. Coltrane. Well, see, Coltrane came a little bit later, because Coltrane, which is another thing that people have to understand, Coltrane was looking to find a direction. Coltrane was rehearsing with Sun Ra for a while, too.
He actually asked Sun Ra if he could use the band for Ascension.
Yeah.
And Sonny turned him down.
Yeah, and you see, and there were people like Frank Wright. There were a whole gang of people playing the music, Albert.
Yeah.
But they were the influence, but because of the popularity of his name and the label he was with, most people look at John Coltrane as what they would say the god of the tenor of that era. But he was a student, and I believe when you hear the LP Transition, mm-hmm. you can hear he finally got the formula. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying no discredit to him or to what people believe, but there were so many people. That's why I don't like when people in the press, they pick one person out of a group of people or a massive group of people who are doing the music and say this is the person, and then the people, with respect to them, tend to follow what they're told to believe.
Yeah, that's right.
You see, but I mean, you could hear John Gilmore.
Well, we know that John Gilmore was a huge influence on Coltrane. Huge. Yeah. And Coltrane recognized that. He mm-hmm. never didn't say so, but unfortunately he passed too young too. So
yeah,
because he was going to go into new realms, and he was working with our friend Ula Tunji, who also has passed, but he was a buddy of mine, Babatunde, and I know Coltrane was working with him. So mm-hmm. there was going to be some wonderful things going on, but mm-hmm. Wonderful things did happen,
mm-hmm.
even without Coltrane. So.
Yeah, well, even Jimi Hendrix was going into that direction.
That's right, absolutely.
With the Electric Church, which actually led to what became Miles's Bitches Brew period.
That's right.
See, but I mean, look, all of those, even Parliament Funkadelic's Mothership, that's all based off of Spaces to Place.
Yeah, I always thought that Clinton took a bunch from Sun Ra.
Yeah, because Sonny was out there on the West Coast at that time. Oh. And I talked to George, I said Spaces Place. He says, yeah, Sonny's still around. I'm like, yeah. But he helped, from Sonny's influence, George Clinton took Parliament Funkadelic to a whole nother level, but it was off the same formula.
That's right. That's true.
See?
Yep. Now, you just mentioned Sonny on the West Coast. Did you have any involvement with the film, The Spaces to Place?
No, I didn't.
That was before your time.
That was before me.
That's right, yeah. But then that was a pretty interesting time, too, when Sonny was out there teaching that class. And
oh, yeah. And he did the thing, the classes at Berkeley.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Some of those, they're recorded, too.
Some of the classes?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Everything is recorded.
Well, I knew he did that, but I didn't know how much was still around. So it's recorded, but not available.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, we've been very fortunate to be getting some Sonny stuff. I have a friend who is a major collector, and I get some great things, and it's wonderful because he produced more than just about anybody. In the studio he produced over 100 records, but I don't think very many people did more concerts than Sun Ra.
Oh no.
So, and they were, like I said, an experience. It wasn't just like going to hear music when you went to a Sun Ra show, and they really inspired me a lot.
Yeah.
That's how I got in the radio, by the way, is because I had a Sun Ra music collection, and I got to do Sun Ra specials, and I ultimately ended up with this show. But it was because of Sun Ra I'm on the radio.
Yeah.
So, all right, Michael. Well, I know that you're busy there. You got a lot of work for ESP. Are you working on other projects with them now, or?
Yeah, I interviewed a lot of the artists that were on ESP. Back in my days in Philly and when I came to New York in '84. And what we're doing is making new product by doubling up the releases and adding interview footage like the Pharoah Saunders,
right.
The Frank Wright. Frank is like my uncle.
Oh, yeah.
He called me baby brother. Everybody calls me the baby, though. And, so it's that kind of situation. My participation and influence from Sun Ra was to, basically collect and tell the history and story of what the music was all about.
Well, yeah, that's a great thing because somebody need to do that.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people, with no disrespect, that are educated in the we'll say, space teachings, but you had to be there to really get the soul's energy of what was really going on. Which that's why I said there's a lot of people that need to be interviewed that can talk about, the music. Sonny and I had this connection because I could talk about the cosmic, situation as a younger person, whereas we would sit down, like after concerts, like matter of fact, the Canada concert, we sit down and we would talk and till 4 o'clock in the morning, just get off the road and dead tired. But he would play little concerts, and then we would just start talking.
Yeah, well, Sonny he didn't sleep much.
No, he didn't. But it was unique because I was no ego trip. Please don't misunderstand. But it was he had somebody he can bounce his thoughts off of. Which there are a lot of people in the band that were very well trained musicians and could do what he wanted. But there was another thing he needed. He needed someone to talk to.
Yeah, philosophy to bounce it off of. Jackson was pretty good with that.
Yeah.
But you're right. A lot of the guys weren't into it at that level.
Yes.
So you were like the youngest guy in the band, but you were the one that he could talk to about it. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. I wish I could find those tapes where he would do those mini concerts for me. He just played music for me.
Wow. And then did he give you any reading to do?
Well, as far as musicians?
Suggested reading and, philosophy.
Well, not necessarily because I can't say that. Yes, he did. He gave me a few things, but I was kind of already there, as a clairvoyant.
Yep.
So he would just, we would just bounce thoughts off of each other, and then more so I would listen to him. Because I was still afraid.
Yeah. And, you couldn't stop him anyhow,
No.
He was an unstoppable force, Sun Ra.
Oh, yeah. My space daddy.
Oh, yeah. And those rehearsals would go on for 12 hours or...
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. Rehearsals were outrageous. They would go on sometimes 12, 18 hours. We would rehearse music to do concerts, get to the concerts, and never play them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know that from my experience with the band, too. Yeah. Then he would be, picking things out of the book that you hadn't rehearsed. Right.
And God forbid someone was late or did something and they got the fire.
Oh, yeah.
And if no one knows about the fire was when Sonny would just take sometimes a 3-hour period and just tell you about yourself. And you will walk out and feel less than a dog sometime because, you didn't do right.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be at rehearsal, you're supposed to do this, and you had broke your discipline.
Oh, yeah. It's like, one of my old buddies was Elo Omo, and on the Lanquidity record, Sonny had his, I always thought it was a typo, but he called him Ego Omo on that record. He did that intentionally because he was trying to keep Elo in his place.
Oh, yeah.
So, Sonny he had a sense of humor, but he also had an iron hand.
Mm-hmm. And do you still have time I wanted to talk a little bit about Eba.
Yeah.
Well, okay. The 1978, around October, was a very sad period for the band. because Danny Davis, of course, if you don't know, was a diabetic, and it was really hitting him hard. And around that time, Eba had went on this 72-day fast, and it affected him mentally and everything else because he had got into this delirious state. And what he did was turn the oven on, and he got in the oven.
Really? I didn't know the story.
That's what happened to Eba. And right shortly thereafter, little Danny Davis left us, to go to the other side. And Danny Davis was such a beautiful person. He was really a sweet cat, man. Yeah. All the people in the band, and I miss them. They're people that I'll be so glad when my time is up that I can go and be with them again because, they were just beautiful, beyond beautiful.
Yeah, John and June. I was pretty close with John and June, and I miss them a lot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I miss my big sister.
Yep.
She was like my mommy.
Oh, yeah.
You better get back in here before such and such a time. Don't make me have to come out there and find you.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, Billie Holiday was always my favorite female vocalist until I heard June, and I got to say, June Tyson is my official favorite female vocalist.
Oh, yeah. She had something special. June had this thing, man, that just... I'd just look at her and marvel, because most folks thought that's June was Sonny's wife. She was just another part of the band.
She was married to Richard Wilkerson.
Richard Wilkerson, yeah.
But and there were shows where she would sit at my table and for hours, and I'd say, June, man, I wish you'd be up there playing. She goes, oh, I'm just having the greatest time being here. She didn't care one way or the other. Whatever Sun Ra said, she would do, and she just loved being around the guys.
Yeah. But when she got sick, I cried like a baby.
Oh, jeez.
It took me a minute to just really settle that, Sonny, John, June were gone. But when it hit me, I broke down and I just got into this manic depression because I was like, wait a minute, something's missing. And then I couldn't go see the band because it was like, I'm expecting Sonny to walk out, and before he passed, I gave him one of his last baths in Philly, and I talked to him about who should come into play, and we had kind of talked about Cecil Taylor taking the chair, and nothing ever came of it, but, we figured, I said, well, what should we do? I need to know what you want done, so... And he said from all those teachings that he did, which we know as the disciplines, when he used the song Discipline 27-2.
Oh, yeah.
He said the people they're not going to believe. He used to say that years before he got sick. And kind of disheartened me, too, when he got sick, that some of the people in the band kind of seemed to think that he was invincible and were supposed to have been there. And it seemed like they just weren't there for him.
They kind of dropped the ball, but there was, once again, the financial problems, and they had no heat in the house, and it was a really bad situation.
But that was normal.
Yeah, you're right. That was normal.
Making the space chili to survive. Get a bag of beans and a can of tomato paste, and throw a whole gang of garlic in. And
was it moon stew? Is that what you called it?
No. Well, moon stew was another dish, but the space chili was the monster. I mean, you couldn't eat it. It was so hot. But after you ate it, it was like you felt energized.
Yeah. Well, Sonny was cooking it, so he had his energy in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, what a tale! I can't. It's great that you got to spend that time with them, and.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's the time that I'll never forget.
No, how could you?
Yeah.
And how do you still play?
Well, I don't play anymore. I used to, and I think one of the last bands I had Woody Shaw before he left, and it became kind of scary because when musicians when they were about to leave, 2 weeks before they left, they would call me and they would give me their interviews, and then they were gone. Eddie Lockjaw Davis, Howard McGee, Leon Thomas.
Man.
The list goes on and on. Frank Wright. And it was like I walked away. I said, well, I'm not doing any more interviews. I said, this is just too much for me. But then I realized it was a calling that they had to give me what they were, that history, because I was one person that they knew that understood beyond the we'll say periodical type knowledge or journalistic type situation that most people would come in and talk about.
Yeah, you were getting deep.
Yeah, spiritual side and what it meant, and they could just Sonny Murray was number one person that he used to come to my house. I used to cook for him, and we just sit in my kitchen and talk.
Wow. And Sonny's my favorite drummer of all time.
Oh yeah, Sonny used to drive me. He's the one that introduced me to Frank Rice. Sonny Murray used to live in Philly and used to drive me to my show at RTI in his cab.
Man, God.
He brought when he brought Frank right up to the studio, he brought him up in a silver Cadillac. I said, "Sonny, where'd you get this silver Cadillac from, man?" Wow. Beautiful people, man.
Yeah. Is Sonny, he's gone now?
No, Sonny's in Paris.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Yeah, matter of fact, they just did an article on him, one of those magazines.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's good that somebody's left, from the day, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And are you going to make it to the Sun Ra show in Central Park?
I'm going to try.
Okay.
Like I said, it's hard because it brings tears to my eyes because I expect Sonny to come out. Oh, do you still have time?
Oh, yeah.
You know what happened when Sonny got sick? When he first had that stroke? Stroke. What happened was Sonny the band went to Germany, and there was this guitar player, young guy, that I forget his name, and he went in and took Sonny's organs. The organs were the extension of Sonny's spirit, and that's when he started to just play piano. And it was very disheartening to see that he had got into this depression because the extension of his being was missing. The organs, man, the Moog, the Yamaha got stolen, the Roxachord got stolen, and you know the history behind all those instruments. They were the main things that Sonny used. And especially if those people who went to the concerts and saw Sonny spin around and play all three organs at once, and they'd get faster and faster.
Yeah.
So, but that's why Sonny got sick. Oh, the guy's name was James.
Oh, so he got sick before he.
Oh yeah.
After he lost the keyboards.
The keyboards. I think it was in the somewhere in the 80s, because then he started to play basically almost like the swing arrangements, the cocktail type situation.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we played tributes to Fletcher Henderson and the Don Redman compositions, but when I heard that, I said, I know what's wrong, and and I would go up and sit and talk with him, and I did go to Brooklyn, and I thought I saw the Roxachord, but when I went back, it was gone. Because I was on this mad rampage. I said, I got to find these organs, because this man's that's his strength. If he doesn't have it, something's going to happen, and something did.
Wow. But didn't he get some other keyboards?
Yeah, the Krumar was okay, but the Krumar was not like the Yamaha. Because the Yamaha, where Sonny could have that Hammond B3 sound, and blow out speakers and stuff, with that bass.
Oh, yeah.
See,
because for a long time he didn't have a bass in the band, right?
Well, he did have a bass player, but
no, but there was a time where he didn't have a bass player. I saw a lot of shows without a bass player.
Oh, you know why? Because they couldn't find one.
Okay.
Because Ed Crockett was one that was in Philly, and we would always try to find Crockett, but he was either at a gig, and of course Ronnie Boykins had passed by then.
Yep. And then he had Hayes Burnett for quite some time.
Right. Hayes, man.
But or Abe, see, now the thing is, Michael, you're not seeing the band. I've seen the band a lot since Sonny passed, and in the beginning it was a little rough. But Marshall has the band sounding fantastic, and as a matter of fact, at the end of Sonny's life there, the band was kind of rough because he wasn't able to really hold it together. His health wasn't that good, and so some of the gigs were not stellar. But Marshall has got the band, really sounded terrific.
Oh yeah, I give credit to Marshall.
Oh,
that's my other uncle.
Oh yeah,
because when I got in the band, I used to stay with Marshall up on his roof, and I give credit to Marshall Allen. And hopefully Marshall will be around for a while to finally see something come back to the band. Because it takes a lot of guts to not try to fill Sonny's shoes, but just to take off where he left, take up where he left off.
Oh, yeah. And Marshall didn't want to do it. He never wanted to be a leader, but he got forced into it, and he's doing a great job.
Oh, yeah. Well, Luke Mon's back in the band.
I know, and that's wonderful.
And a lot of the vets are coming back, so I'm like, that might be an incentive to go see the guys again and just be around family again.
Oh, yeah. I'm telling you, the last gig I saw them play was fantastic. It was it was like the best one I'd seen in over 10 years.
Wow.
So I think you ought to make it. The Sun Ra Orchestra is playing at Summer Stage in New York City on the 30th, July 30th. It's a free show. MC5 is on the bill.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. All the listeners should head out, and all the fans. Michael, you too. And maybe even Michael Ray will be there. He hasn't been around for the last few gigs I saw, but
yeah,
it's wonderful. And you ought to think about you could sit in.
I don't know.
No. There's never enough percussion in the band.
Yeah. Well, Luke Mon was my main influence, and then when Samurai was in the band,
oh, yeah.
Samurai was let me maybe pick up a tenor saxophone, and Marshall sold me his alto. I was like, this cat is awesome.
Wow.
Samurai was outrageous, man. Him and Luke Mon used to get in there, and they would do these drum back, call and response type things. I was like, look at this, man.
Yep. Yeah, when Luke Mon came back, I was thrilled, and I love, he's like the John Gilmore of the drums for me.
Oh yeah, and a beautiful person, of course.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think he's a doctor like Milford Graves or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, driving his silver Cadillac.
So yeah, it'd be nice for the orchestra to get some kind of remuneration for all the hardship they've put up with, and they haven't got enough respect from just about anybody, and it breaks my heart, but they just plug on. Well,
there was a block, and you know how it has to do with the family that was never there for Sonny, and then when they saw that there was money, then everybody wants to jump into the picture and claim that they own rights, and they don't even know what the music is all about.
Yep.
And that's basically what transpired, because I was one of the persons involved with bringing a lot of stuff together to finally get things into the right perspective, where the band wouldn't have to be going through what it's going through right now, but it comes from greed.
Yeah.
And the musicians who made the music, and they're the ones that are paying the price right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I give credit to Jerry Gordon, because Jerry Gordon was one of the main people who helped the band keep going when we were in Philly. Anytime we needed money, Jerry, who started Evidence Records, was the main person that we could go to get money to pay the mortgage, food, whatever.
Well, that's great, because I actually talked to Jerry when he reissued all the Sun Ra stuff, and I asked him if he could give some money to the orchestra, and he didn't.
No, well, well, let me tell you, Jerry used to go into his pocket. I mean, Jerry, he had Third Street Jazz, but Jerry, God bless him, was the main person where the band kept going for a long stretch when I was there, because he would come in there, just write a check.
All right. Well, that's great. I'm glad that he did it. So
yeah.
I'm glad. Well, hopefully some other labels will do it too, and get the guys some money, and they don't need a lot, but they should have something.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this estate situation will get straightened out, and those tapes will surface.
Yeah, that'd be really nice.
Yeah.
All right, Michael. Well, we're kind of running out of time here, and I don't want to cut you off, though. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up before we got to leave?
Well, my only thing that I'd like to leave in closing is to just remember what Sonny taught us all, not as people of races and all that other thing, just as individual beings, because we're all individual beings, of another kind of spiritual race.
Yeah.
And just remember what he taught us, and don't let yourself be swayed by any of the philosophical doctrines, or which some people call religion. Use it to the advantage to understand who you individually are, and what you as the individual has to contribute to what they call life. That's being fruitful and multiplying.
Yeah. Yep, feeling how your spirit is connected to the Creator, and that's part of it too. Huh?
Because it's all kinds of people, not just black people, not just white people. It's all of us collectively together, taking what was taught, and even before Sonny, and knowing how to make it work for you. Okay. And that's what the discipline is all about.
Yep. Cooperation, communication, connection, and cooperation. That's what I say.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, Michael. Well, you have a great rest of the day there.
And you the same.
And I will, and hopefully we'll be in contact soon, and we'll get to connect again in flesh.
Yes, indeed.
All right.
Yes, And thank you ever so much.
Hey, thanks for taking time out to spend with us. And
Sonny, thank you as well.
Oh, yeah. All right, Michael.
Okay.
Take care. Space.
Space is the place.
Yeah. Bye.
Peace.
Bye. All right, folks. Michael Anderson from the Sunra Orchestra. That was pretty darn interesting. I've got something I queued up here, and I'm wondering if it's the right piece that we were talking about. Let's check it out here. This could be There Are Other Worlds that Michael was talking about. Let's see. Oh yeah, this one is it. Let's have a listen to this for a while. This is the unedited first edition of the Lanquidity record. There Are Other Worlds They Have Not Told You Of. They wish to speak to you. All right, Ola Tunji right here on WHUS Stores, One World Radio, just completing our program. And hopefully you enjoyed the interview with Michael Anderson from the Sun Ra Orchestra and their history. I certainly enjoyed that. Great guy, Michael. And as I mentioned in the show, the orchestra will be performing for free at Summer Stage in New York City at Central Park on July 30th. All right. Unfortunately, I have not gotten Amy Goodman. The satellite is down, and I have not gotten Amy Goodman, so I don't know if she's on or not. But, she's not on right now. That I can say. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. If we can get her on at some point, we certainly will. I guess we're going to continue with the music, if that is the case, and we are going to hear now from Chebi Saba right here on WHUS Stores.
تدور